Good evening and welcome to VI Voices. I'm Emile Henderson. Tonight we have with us, of course, our usual panelists, Natalie Nelson, Tang, Clint Ferris, and Boyd McFarlane. Good night.
Good night.
And this show, we're doing another show of all hot topics. And because we're doing the show again because we have a lot of hot topics to discuss. And the first thing that we want to discuss is the filing of the lawsuit in federal court to determine whether or not the convictions that Senator has been convicted of, those crimes, whether they are in fact crimes of moral turpitude. In addition to that, if it is, that she then be removed from the ballot for November. What are your thoughts on that?
I see it.
Go ahead, Boyd.
No, I was going to say I see it going through because I'm aware for a fact of a case. I can't remember the case, but there's a case in California I read where the federal government had already defined moral turpitude, and failure to file taxes, which she is convicted of, was actually one of them that was defined. I think it was a doctor who had failed to file taxes out of California. And the federal, because of the immigration issue, they wanted to figure out whether or not it was a moral turpitude, so it went to the Supreme Court, and the federal government then decided they came up with yes, federal taxes or failure to file taxes are in fact.
Now, what they're going to say though is that what she was convicted of were local crimes, not federal crimes. But at the end of the day, we do have case law here that says our local statute is identical to the federal statute. With the exception that the numbers are different. Ours is 1544, theirs is 7203. Theirs say federal, ours say local. That's the only difference. So if it stands to reason that occurred, then it stands to reason that the court has really no other choice but to determine that it's a crime of moral turpitude.
See, I believe the plaintiff in this case has all right to advance this argument, and there's no right or wrong, and if anyone wants to vilify the person who advanced this argument, that should not be, because this is America. If you feel aggrieved and you need justice, you go through the courts, and this is the way. And it's a shame that we keep having to go to the courts to settle this particular issue,
which could have been settled for last year.
This is my issue. That's my issue. Everything somehow is politically motivated. Why did we wait till now, just before the elections are about to pop, to do this? I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, but why the timing as now?
Well, you know what I think it is?
We have the voters' attention now? I mean, why did we wait till now?
You know what I think it is? I think it appears to me, unlike what happened the last time when Mr. Springer filed it, he filed it on a different provision. And the provision that this group,
this is the Action Group, right?
No, right, but when Colleen Clark, the Action Group, filed it initially with Mr. Abramson, who then made his ruling, that provision wasn't available to Mr. Springer last year because you have a very short window in which to file and challenge.
Right.
That's what they did this time. And then John Abramson, of course, determined that she was. Interestingly enough, he comes back right after he makes that decision and says, well, you know what? I'm not even sure that I have the authority to make that decision. So it's like a whole confusion back and forth, which you're actually now forcing these people to, the only place to go is to the courts now.
Right. But are we dividing our electorate as well, though, by doing this at this time? Because it's a very important issue. But I don't know if
they do it.
Timing-wise, it's detracting from the actual elections.
I think in 2010 it took away from the elections. I'm going to tell you straight up.
You think so?
Yeah, but at this particular time, I don't think it does. I think it's warranted at this time. But what I say now, as we go forward, if the 30th legislature doesn't deal with election reform in a holistic manner and make sure we get some sound legislation out of that body, I believe the people again should throw all of those folk out in after the 30th election comes to bear in November 24th.
I agree. You said something. Go ahead.
No, I was about to ask, moral turpitude aside, even in 2010, was she not on probation? Yeah. So that should be an issue.
But what happened though, that I think Natalie's somewhat correct, is that nobody challenged her at all when she was running in 2010.
I'm not even talking about anybody challenging her. I'm speaking about the board itself. Don't you have to file some kind of paperwork in order for you to become eligible to run in the first place? So the board itself.
Well, I think so. The board failed.
But remember, John Abramson said, and I quote, he said, the courts never informed him of any act.
But they never do.
So that's why I'm saying that he's basically his organization, the VA Board of Election, the election system, they asked to investigate because they have to verify
that's their duty,
that you.
But here's the
you can
thing that
run.
makes his statement just ridiculous, because he didn't do that for Mr. Molinar. What he said for Mr. Molinar is, I knew that there was a conviction he had, so I went to the court to go get the documents to find out.
Right.
Well, who didn't know that Senator Hansen was convicted of
right.
3 tax crimes when she was convicted?
And
Then you should, when she submitted her forms, you should say, well, let me go to the court and find out what happened. But he didn't do that. You know, but you said something a little while ago, and I wasn't going to say anything, but I think it's important for us to say it. You said that the plaintiffs should be vilified. Over the past weekend, I heard a lot of people calling in radio programs, and one thing they were talking about was George Moore. You know, he is the only person running for office who have actually put his name as a plaintiff on the lawsuit, and vilifying him, claiming that he just wants name recognition and nobody knows who he is, and all this other stuff. Incidentally, those callers were all from St. Thomas, and it explains why they think that Mr. Moore would file this lawsuit to get a name, not knowing that Mr. Moore already has a name, and it doesn't need this lawsuit to create a name for himself. But what's important is that at least somebody is standing up. It's not about her. It is about a process, about an issue that has to go forward. And why nobody else is doing it is completely baffling to me. But what we need to understand is, when you vilify people for doing what they believe is right, that's when we get societies of dictatorships, where they do whatever they want and lawlessness. And so I want to just say to everybody, or anybody who feels that Mr. Moore has added his name to a lawsuit to get a name for himself, Mr. Moore already has a name for himself, and he doesn't need this lawsuit to do that. And whether Mr. Moore wins or not come November, if he wins, great. We'll be all happy for him. If he does not, then at least he would have lost on principle.
And that's
all that's important.
And that's what's lacking.
And that's what makes
Yes, and integrity
yes,
is lacking in our system.
Now, how do we justify, guys? Running an election campaign can be quite expensive.
Correct.
The senator is investing money. She's a large campaign headquarters right on the main stretch in San Juan. And, you have to look on the other side of it, too. Here it is. She's doing what she's supposed to do. She campaigns very heavily compared to some other candidates. And at the same time, you have a faction who is letting their voice be heard that, we don't think she needs to be there because we think that, she has violated the conditions for her to be qualified. I think there's something wrong with that message that we're sending.
No, but you see, it goes back to the via election system not doing the due diligence. Because one thing I'm missing here.
So are you saying she can turn around and sue them if
No.
she's
Actually,
removed?
I don't know what. I'm not even going to go that far. I just want the election system to. Once upon a time, they used to publish campaign finance reports. They used to hold people accountable.
But you're required to. But they're required to do that.
But one the last of the help people accountable who are running for elective office, and that's the problem right here. So Senator Hansen, yes, she put some money in, but I'm telling you, sooner or later the system gonna have to deal with the monsters that he has created.
The system, in my opinion, has become complacent because it's the same people that's been in there for years. They became complacent, and the constituency, they're becoming more involved now. We're becoming more politically astute, so we're paying more attention.
Right.
So now this is what's happening, and they're only doing that because of dissatisfaction. A lot of the monies and a lot of social ills are trickling down to the masses of the people, and the masses of the people are becoming more educated and aware of the process. So I believe that's what's happening now. So they're paying more attention.
Now here's the thing, though, and Natalie, I agree with you that she's spending a lot of money, and this is what gets to me. I would think everybody, whatever side of the fence you fall on this more alternative issue, everybody would want it resolved. That if you believe that you have not committed a crime involving moral turpitude, you will champion somebody going to the court saying, court, here are the reasons why I think you should rule in my favor. Please do so, and whatever you want to submit on your own.
And that's what's going to happen.
Well, I hope, but I'm saying, but to just step back and say people just want to cause confusion, I think everybody should want to have this matter resolved. And if the courts are to rule that it is not a crime involving moral turpitude, I don't have a problem with it. That means the court says it's not. She's free to run. She's free to sit, and I'm good for her. I don't have a problem with that. But if the court says that it is, then I have a problem with someone sitting in the legislature illegally.
Correct. And you see, and we continue to mull over. It's not even mull over. There's a lot of energy we are putting into this debate.
Yeah.
And as I say, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. We just keep transferring. But I think it's been lost here because we keep misusing this energy that can be used for something better than this.
Do you believe, and I think so, do you believe that had the Board of Elections dealt with this issue in December, January, when it was originally filed by Mr. Springer on the issue regarding moral turpitude, that we would be here today?
If they had dealt with it,
dealt in the real way,
2010, when she filed her papers, we would not be here today. But let's
presume that even they didn't then. You come now to December when they filed their original stuff. Had they really dealt with the issue, because remember, they didn't know. They just dealt with this issue on felony. Nobody was challenging the issue of felony. And they never asked the Attorney General to explain to them moral turpitude, give us this issue on that. Do you think if they had dealt with that then, we would be here?
No. I totally agree, and that's why my position on it is the timing is wrong.
But you're right, the election system, I keep saying, I'm inferring from you, the election system is going to be creating a monster. Not just one, several. And they're going to be coming from all sides.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the unfortunate thing. And who's going to have to shoulder this responsibility? The people of the Virgin Islands. And that's where we go.
And like you said, had they dealt with it from back then, from August of 2010, they could have focused on other issues.
Absolutely.
Like the machines, for example.
I know.
And the machines is a big issue, and that's a whole other kind of...
Well, it won't be happening for 2012. With 2014, I understand that new machines will be here. So I'm sure, hopefully, we'll get the board to come on the show, or our representative from the board to talk about it and see what's going to happen. But, that case is going to district court, federal court. But, we have another court, our superior court. And over the weekend, the governor has finally nominated 3 people to the bench. As you know, Judge Patricia D. Steele, who's a family court judge here in St. Croix, is retiring.
Correct.
And Judge Audrey Thomas in St. Thomas, the family court judge there, is also retiring. Both family court judges. And the governor has nominated Deborah Watlington, who is a territorial public defender, the chief territorial public defender in St. Croix, for Judge Thomas's seat. Has nominated Denise Hines, who is a assistant U.S. attorney, to Judge Steele's seat, and has appointed Doug Brady, who sits on the Constitutional Convention, to Judge Julio Brady's seat. Now, the difference there is Judge Brady didn't retire. Judge Brady just wasn't reappointed. And I have a problem with the manner in which that was handled.
Explain.
Yeah,
ordinarily, Judge Julio Brady's term expired in May of 2012. Okay? He was within his 120 days. Because by statute, you have 120 days that you can continue on, right? And then within that time frame, you're either going to be renominated or somebody else will come in and you put somebody else in that spot. After your 120 days expires, by statute, you cease to be a judge. His 120 days ended today. So as of today, Judge Brady has no more authority to act as a judge. So which means now Superior Court doesn't have a judge, at least for that portion, okay? My issue is, it was evident, and you had to have known that you were not going to reappoint him, okay? From May. Because then you would have reappointed. It doesn't happen over there.
That's right.
You know when you're going to do it. If you're going to do it, then you would have done it already.
Sure.
You let that man sit there for 120 days, doing work, and going on till the very last day to unceremoniously just say, I'm going to pick somebody else. And I think for a public servant like Judge Julio Brady, who pretty much his entire career has been in public service.
Correct.
When he has been a man who has given his life to public service and has done it honorably, that was not the way to replace him. I have a problem with that.
That's so unfortunate because it's not, in life it's not what we do, it's how we do it.
Right.
And as Emile said, there's a process. There's a process in the madness, and I just cannot understand how 120 days has actually run as of today.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed as to whether or not Judge Julio Brady even saw this coming. I mean, was he sitting there on the bench?
Let me say this. Let me put it this way.
Anticipating to be reappointed? Or
I think so. He wanted to continue on, from what I understand.
Think about
he wanted to continue serving.
The anticipation was there.
But I'll tell you this about me though. You won't get a chance to do it to me. Because if my term was out in May, in May and I haven't heard anything, I was writing a letter. Listen to me. Are you going to reappoint me to the bench? Because if not, it's time for me to pack up my stuff and go home
what if you don't get an
and reopen my. Then I'm going home, and I'm not required to stay an additional 120 days. You do that so that you go through the process to give the legislature time to do it.
You have a duty to wrap up your cases, have a transition, for the other judges coming in.
So
you can't just leave today for tomorrow.
So what happened to the case?
You can't do it when my term expires in May and you have not said to me, I'm planning to reappoint you. Then doesn't mean that you don't.
Up during the 120 days.
No. The 120 days is designed to give the legislature, if I'm going to be reappointed, the opportunity for you to continue on while you are still there if you're going to be reappointed. If you are not going to be reappointed, you may continue for the 120 days until your successor comes in, if you choose to. But if I'm saying to you, hey, my term ends May 1st, I haven't heard from you, am I going to be reappointed? And you're ignoring me? I am taking my diplomas off the wall and I'm going home. It's as simple as that. I'm not staying there for you to do to me what you do to eat. That's for sure.
But what happens to his cases that are presently before?
It will stay there. It will just sit there.
So do they create a crisis in the court?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So good luck.
So the cases sit there until when?
Until the new judge reaches.
So are you going to now say that the legislature is going to have to hasten this process?
Oh wait, hold that thought. We'll answer when we come back. We'll be back in a minute. Good evening and welcome back to VI Voices. We are doing some hot topics and we were talking about recent appointments to the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. And you were about to answer a question or ask a question?
I asked the question. The crisis that is now created by the vacancy created by Judge Brady, does that now cause this legislature to hasten the process?
Absolutely. They're going to have to rush it out. And this is when you got to be careful because you got to watch what's happening. Remember the last time we had one of these new things was Judge Kendall. Okay, remember that?
Yes.
And he was out, bam on the bench.
And he created it.
But
we do have some competent nominees, I must say, in the form of Attorney Doug Brady, Attorney Denise Hines, and Attorney Deborah Watkington out of St. Thomas.
I think there was a name missing from the bunch. I guess we just have to wait for that.
I think
there was a name missing from the bunch.
That name was never going to happen as long as we're in this administration. So that's perfectly fine. But I say this though, I agree, Natalie. The governor made excellent choices.
Okay.
Those lawyers are excellent lawyers who I believe will do a great job. Primarily with Doug Brady, why I like his appointment is the fact that he's a civil lawyer. We weren't getting civil lawyers appointed to the bench. Hopefully he'll pay attention to the civil area to move his civil cases. Well, he was, and his was moving, but he didn't last too long.
Hopefully.
And so hopefully Doug Brady will be able to move these cases along and because he's comfortable with civil matters. Plus, for many years he was a mediator and has mediated a lot of cases.
Yes.
And so he has that kind of feel to say, well, let me gauge what's happening to these parties to kind of push it going.
Yeah.
And so that's a good choice. Deborah Wallington, she started out primarily working with the public defender's office in the juvenile area. So that was where her start was before she went into appeals to the public defender's office, and is now is the chief territorial public defender. So she'll be an excellent choice, I believe. And then Denise Hines, come from the U.S. Attorney's Office, who also I think is a great choice. She is very smart.
She is.
Can handle her own, and I think that she'll do well there.
No, but what I'm more concerned of is if you think about it, the public defender's office. For the last several appointments,
you have
two judges that come out of the public defender's office. So, what's going to take place in that particular office? Are you going to see? Are you going to see changes in the public defender's office?
Well, I sit on the board for the public defender's office. I know that there's some stuff we got to do. We got to look. So vacancies are out there. So a lot of stuff we're going to have to do. But the office will be fine because the lawyers who are there, who are in court every single day, they're still there. And Judge, Attorney Smith Wallington, at times will also appear, but not all the time because her role kind of changed into an administrative role.
Yeah.
So the other lawyers are still there, and they'll take up the slack and do what needs to be done.
I don't know enough about this case or about who the Brady's mindset to make a comment in it. But what I would say though is I've always had an issue with why do we appoint judges? I mean, if this is supposed to be a democracy, the three branches of government, but when you hold elections elections for 2 branches.
Well, I think
Why
one
is
of the
that?
reasons for
We've been
I think
through
for
that.
appointing judges is really to remove the air of political pandering.
Exactly.
And in
So
some
that's a
other
reason-
jurisdictions,
that's a reason
in
they
other
keep it.
jurisdictions,
Yes.
they elect judges. But what you find is a lot of ethical violations
Exactly.
because this
Kickbacks
person
and-
gives this money, that person gets that money.
Yeah.
Our community is so small that chances are somebody that knows somebody would have contributed to your campaign and will have recusals left and right, and there'll be no judges to hear your matters.
Exactly.
So I don't
That makes sense.
necessarily, I'm not against
I agree with the point.
having appointed judges.
Yeah.
You just have, that's why you have a legislature. They have to really sit there and go through them.
Well, then
That's why you have a bar
the
association
legislature
for us to do all this other
should be
stuff.
the legislature. Then.
Right.
Be the first branch of government, do as they're supposed to do.
Right,
Right.
right, and vet them properly. And that's why we have a
Properly
bar
vet them.
association for us who actually go through their stuff. We send it to the bar who have to work with whomever this person will be every day to get their feelings. Now you do remember when Judge Kendall again was appointed, the legislature completely disregarded everything the bar association said.
Everything.
Everything the bar association said.
They might as well not have sent
And
anything.
so when I not said anything, and it kind of turned off the bar. They're like, well, what's the point?
Correct.
If you ask them, if you're not going to do anything. For a while, the bar didn't participate.
And
but
why
I
do
will
you,
say-
why do you think that was done?
because they
ignored
wanted
everything.
Judge
Of
Kendall.
course, but that's
And so at the time, the push was, he was already going to be there. Despite there were other judges that said this shouldn't happen. Nobody paid attention to the other judges that said that. Nobody paid attention to the bar association and says, well, you know what? We don't think this is probably a good choice. He went on the bench, and we all know what happened.
But if you think about it, look at nominees, not just judges. Name the last nominee that was declined by the legislature.
Spampanato.
That,
That was like
see,
the first time in my life.
thank you.
Yeah.
I find that strange that we don't. Many people that come before the legislature that should not be even approved.
Right. But
And-
deals
and-
already happened.
Correct, and I
So
don't
it
know
doesn't
why
matter.
we consider them.
So
And that's the challenge right there. So I am telling, I am hoping, I hope one or two of these appointees, confirmations, go into the next, go into
Yeah.
the 30th legislature and see how these new legislators.
What I
can
think
handle
is
it.
what I think is sad is the way that the people are looking at the courts. There was a time, and I've said this before. Remember that I said this to you before. There was a time there was great reverence when you went to the courthouse.
Yes.
Sure.
You respected going to the courts, and you respected the people. It was a dignified job to be a court employee, a dignified job to be a judge. And people looked at you, and whether they like you or not, you garnered respect.
Respect.
That does not happen anymore.
Correct.
And it may be the politics of the day.
It is.
may be the way that at times judges seem to be shying away
It is.
from ruling and stuff.
That's exactly
I
what
mean,
it is.
the days of Judge Peterson, Judge Finch,
Judge
those are-
Christian.
Judge Christian.
Christian, right.
Those days aren't. Those judges aren't around as much anymore. I mean, case in point, that lawsuit filed by Mr. Olive against the governor
correct.
in St. Thomas. Every single judge in St. Thomas recused themselves.
Sure.
Right.
For what? I have yet to figure out what was the reason for you. What? Because you were in St. Thomas? That's not a basis for you to recuse yourself,
Right.
unless it was something personal. You know what I'm saying? Something personal. Why you that fits it? I don't understand why you recuse yourself.
But it becomes very difficult to deal with tough issues. You saw what happened to Judge Andrews.
Yeah, but then
But
get
deal-
off the bench.
then deal
But that's
with
why
it.
you're there. You're there to make difficult decisions.
Sure.
If you can't make the difficult decisions, then you
Then
shouldn't
you
go to
be
the
a
bench.
judge.
Hey, I'm
And that's
looking
what
for-
happens if
I'm-
people lose respect in the system.
But you don't want to make a decision and be removed from the
But guess what? If I were to be a judge and a decision or a position comes up that's so controversial, I am going to make a decision based on the law and the facts. If it means that 4 years later you're not going to reappoint me, I have a law degree and a license.
Right.
I go back and I practice law.
See, so
Do you understand? The bench doesn't
So
belong
you're
to
saying
me.
let the chips fall
Where they may. That's why you go there.
Thank you.
a decision.
You know what I'm saying? You go to make decisions. That's why you're the judge. You can't run away from it. You have to actually make decisions. The only judge that I know, in my mind, that had a valid recusal excuse was Judge
Christian.
Willock.
Willock, okay.
And well, two. You're right, Judge Willock and Judge Christian.
Okay.
Judge Christian was his lawyer at the time. He can't do it. I understand that.
Right.
Judge, by the time he made the same before I went to Judge Willock's, he had, when he was a lawyer, advised some of the parties. He shouldn't do it. I get that. If end up Judge Donahue, he kept it. He ruled.
Unless you're-
Rightfully so. His ruling was, I think, correct. You know, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision. You can't run away from it. That's why you're the judge. And if you, and that's what I'm going to be looking for with these nominees, is when hard decisions come to you, if you and tell me you can't make it, then I don't need you on the bench.
And that's, you're right about that. So I'm looking forward to your judgeship.
But that won't happen before 2014.
But
So just as long as you know.
Stay tuned.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Stay tuned. If your voices are still on the air, then I will come back and you'll talk about me then.
He'll be back as a guest.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
And then we'll have Clint
So,
questioning it.
yeah, oh Lord, Lord have mercy. Now, convictions. Tydell John, the teacher who was alleged to have molested those children, have been
Yes.
convicted of all the counts except
12,
four.
yeah.
Okay, 4 counts. And in tune with that, I read in the paper over the weekend that some 68-year-old man has been arrested and charged with molestation, aggravated sexual rape of
That's
a
right.
12-year-old minor.
That happened last week.
Last
It was
week.
advisor rights.
Let's just say it is alleged because you're innocent until proven guilty. But my concern is, and tell me what you think, should the mother of the 12-year-old also be arrested? Because the mother, if the reports are true, the 68-year-old asked the mother of the 12-year-old, can your daughter sleep over to my house? They're not related, okay? And the mother says, sure. He picks up the 12-year-old and they go down to his house.
I'll let the mother begin. I'll let
You're the
mother
mother
on the panel begin.
So what do you think that
Well,
must be
let me
arrested?
say this much. I thought facts were missing. I really
I
thought
agree.
facts were missing.
I
I mean, I read it, and you paraphrase stuff. So I got the impression that there were facts missing, that there was a family friendship, that there were other young people at the home.
Right.
He may have you see what I'm saying?
Right.
I just got an impression that there was more to it than senior citizen taking a 12-year-old to go sleep at his house.
Right.
I just didn't
Off the top
hear
of my head, I
that.
would agree with you.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought
least
about.
that's
I
how
think there's got to be
I
facts
looked
that
at
are
it.
missing.
Well, I think I know what the facts are, but I'm not going to say it because I haven't read it.
Right.
But my thing is, yeah, he didn't come to your house and stay at your house with all the other children. He took up your daughter and went with your daughter to his house.
But is
But who
he?
are all the other children?
Is he?
But the other children were with them.
Oh, the other children?
No,
Is he
she went to his.
Is he caretaking? Are there other children of her age?
But
Or
Let me make something clear.
Questions and that.
There are a lot of questions, but let me make something clear, right? I am not sending my 12-year-old child with a 68-year-old man.
No, correct. But
Do you understand my point? Unless that's her grandfather, and we all know.
But he
that's my
could be her adopted grandfather.
No,
I mean,
no.
yes.
but you see,
No, I can't
we
do that.
as a community, we are creating the fertile soil for these kind of things to happen in our community, because there are a lot of times that these things are taking place and we know about them, but people are not prosecuted, or other things are, and our prosecution is delayed. We got to deal with these issues head on. I don't care who you be, or who you happen to be.
And I
in
guess
this
I should
community.
say this as a defense lawyer, and you're a criminal defense lawyer too. I really shouldn't jump the gun and just presume
Really
the man.
not.
Not because I'm a defense lawyer, and I always presume, the law says you're innocent until proven guilty, and you should sit down and, tomorrow we may go to our offices, and one of us may be appointed to
deal
his
with-
case. And so, but my point is, oftentimes I do a lot of family court appointments, which is why I feel strong about this. And I have, and I see court cases with this. And oftentimes you see this all the time. You have a mom and they have young children, and there are these guys, whether they're within age or that much older. And everybody's so willing to send their children to off with these people who are not necessarily close family friends, but even for some who are close family friends, just send their children off and it's okay. And when you hear what the children are saying, you're wondering, well, if this is going on this long and your child is saying this over and over, why didn't you pick up on it?
Correct.
That something wasn't kind of right. I'm just saying, for me, if I have a 12-year-old daughter and there's some family friend that's 68 years old and clearly able-bodied because he could move up or not do whatever he wants to do, gonna come to me and say, Emile, can your daughter stay the night by my house?
Under those
Really?
circumstances, the answer is N-O.
Do you understand?
Exclamation
Right?
mark.
Okay. So
If that's all
clear.
true.
That's cut and dry.
assuming that's what happened,
Right.
right? But I can only go with what I saw in the paper for right now. Assuming that's what happened. What I'm saying is, without casting any aspersions, it seems to me there's more going on between the relationship with that old man and that 12-year-old's mother.
Perhaps
as
money.
to what's going exactly.
That's what I
what's
think. There's some
happening.
missing-
And so it's okay to overlook certain things when these things happen to the development of your children.
Right.
And I, for the life of me, cannot fathom what would be the reason for sending your 12-year-old child to stay the night
I can give you
over,
lots of reasons.
Right.
But
or the legitimate reason for sending your 12-year-old child to spend the night
Sure.
with a 68-year-old man.
The only thing I would like to see is more advocacy done, because I would like to see the Women's Coalition, CASA and all of these other organizations come up and step up.
And they do?
But they don't follow. Their cases still out there that we haven't heard, nobody's asking, where is the prosecution? There are things taking place that up to this day, what is going on in our society where we're not seeing the prosecution, we're not seeing we know people who are pedophiles, we know people, not just this one man here, we know many people that still have not arrived to the court step to this day.
But there are also many cases pending in the court of that nature.
There are many, but
There are many.
but things are still missing, and we still need to
I mean,
prosecute.
I'm saying we have a long way to go, but it is happening.
Yeah,
There could be more advocacy.
There could be more.
And I think there needs to be more of a parental obligation when it comes to taking care of their children. Because it starts at home, really.
No, but when-
we could have all the advocacy groups we want, but it starts at home.
But then when it's alleged of a senator committing a similar infraction and others across the pond, and up to this day, have you heard any movement upon those cases? There are a lot of things taking place in the Virgin Islands that I think.
Well, sometimes cases can sit because there is a backlog. So it's not as if they're went out the window, but sometimes they take a while. Because sometimes
because there's a what?
Backlog.
Backlog.
A delay.
Well, next month, hopefully, our producers are working on it. We're hoping to get the Women's Coalition people on here, as well as people from the Men's Coalition, because next month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Right.
And so we're hoping to get them on the show for next month.
Right.
And one of the questions I really want to ask, at least the Women's Coalition, is we have this stigma that males aren't domestically abused. And so that, because case in point, that man that got burnt up and died at the hands of the lady who...
In Paradise.
Right, in Paradise. I haven't heard, or maybe they have, but I haven't heard the kind of outcry for that.
Right.
And he was abused, from what I understand.
But they said, remember they said it was a child being abused in the midst, and everybody said it was all right for her to do what she
Right, but
did
it's
to him.
always all right when, right now there's a woman on trial for stabbing another man. I don't remember seeing the Women's Coalition present. My thing is, if you are against domestic violence, you should be against it regardless of who the victim is, whether male or
And
female.
to their credit, they do say that. We are here for victims, male, female.
And children.
But I want them to
I
come,
hope so.
and I need to hear a little bit more about it, because I don't see the push. And the reason, and I've talked to Clem about this, I know Clem about it, we talked about this before, and she's indicated, but one of the reasons is that you have a lot of reports involving women. And my retort is, because men are not going to come and say they will be
Men don't
violent.
Well, it's a stigma.
And
to
so,
it.
right, so of course, but I understand now, nationally, those numbers are rising, where men are not afraid to come out as they used to before to say that they've been abused.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that next month. But we've come to the end of our show for tonight. I think that we've had an awesome show with these hot topics.
Sure.
We do our best with what we can, and be sure that you all are enlightened. Coming up on our show, we're going to have Senators Nellie Rivera O'Reilly and Senator Ronald Russell on the show. As you know, we're doing our campaign, our Rock Your Voice campaign, and our campaigns to have your voices heard. So we'll be back on our next episode with that show. Remember, your voice can make a difference. Good night, everybody.